Hello and welcome everyone to Marion Disc Golf Course. Today we're going to be doing a drone walkthrough of the course. We're going to start off with hole number 1. It's a par 4, 425 feet. Pretty soft par 4 that's wide open. Only real trouble is the OB walking trail to the left of your screen and the creek for tournament play that you'll see in the middle of the fairway. Creek is roughly 250 feet from the sea. Shorter arms can lay up in front of the creek if they don't want to bring it into play. Right in here is where most tee shots will land. About 100 foot from the pin. Bigger arms will land up closer to the pin and push the tree line. The only real trouble back there is the walking trail that you see elevated behind the tree line. Pretty short hole, pretty easy 3. Here we have hole number 2, a par 4, 520 feet, hard dogleg to the right. You must throw left through this tunnel of the mando tree there you see with the sign on it. Pretty much any straight shot out this gap will leave you in good position for your approach shot. You can cut off a lot of distance if you can cut it around the corner. The basket is back off in the wood line on the right side of your screen. Anywhere in this area is where the typical drive lands. You can cut the corner a little bit harder and get farther down here. The only bad miss on this hole is to the right. There's a couple different ways to approach this green. There's a white ash tree off to the left side of your screen. That has a pretty open gap if you can come in from that direction. The downhill green will help the disc filter down from that direction. There's a straight gap here towards number 3's tee pad in the center of your screen. And a pretty well guarded right gap over here by the rail bridge that you can see on the right side. It's a pretty fast green. There is a creek to your right and a creek long. They're both about 20 feet from the basket. Hole number 3, par 4, 460 feet. It's definitely one of the top 5 most difficult scoring holes on the course. Heavily wooded, pretty tight hole. There is OB creek to the right and OB long to the left past the tree line in the open fairway. Most tee shots will be a putter here, mid turnover. Not really trying to get a whole lot of distance off the tee, just navigate this left to right tunnel here. Once you make this initial curve, there are 2 gaps that you're going to want to try to line yourself up with. The left gap along the OB tree line give you a nice forehand or lefty hyzer into the pin, and I believe the drone is going to show you that gap to the left there. Pretty low ceiling, more wide open, and I believe the drone is going to fly the right gap now. The aim point here is kind of those blue pylons. Anything right of those will filter into the creek. It's a pretty low ceiling as you get up close to the green. It's a relatively quick green, so you can slide your disc up to the basket. You want to be here or far left and come around the backside, kind of pin high to have the best look at getting your 3. It's a relatively tough 3 to get. Par on this hole is usually making strokes on the field. On to hole 4, another par 4, 535 feet. This hole is wide open, and its only real deception is the wind, and it plays slightly uphill the entire way. The wind was blowing pretty hard this day. It's pushing the drone to the right. It'll get back on track here in a minute and start flying the regular line. Most tee shots will land out in this area, give you a mid-range or a putter up into the green. Longer arms can try to push for a circle 2 putt. Usually heavy wind on this hole, you want to try to give yourself a tailwind putt. On to hole 5, par 3, 270 feet. Not an extremely difficult hole. It does play right to left, favors the righty hyzer. Tee shot just needs to play out the gap between these 2 small trees. This creek that you're flying over to the left runs all the way down along the left side of the pin. It is OB. You want to fly your tee shot out here and try to hyzer around this tree that sticks out. Anything that lands around this white stake that you see or inside is pretty much a circle 1 putt. Only real risk is cutting it off too short and hugging it left. There's a very low ceiling over there. Safe play is straight out to the right into the open fairway. As you can see behind the green, it slopes down into the creek. Hole 6, par 3, 255. One of the easier holes on the course. This tree here on the right really doesn't come into play. It's more of a hindrance than anything. There's several gaps that can be played. The right gap, you want to be short of going long. You're kind of pinched off with the low ceiling. The gap right up the middle, you can kind of slide the disc up there. And if you go left, there's this small guardian tree here that can be a problem, but missing long left is actually a pretty good shot because it opens up back there. Very gettable hole. You need to be making 2 on this hole. As we approach the green here, you can see it's pretty slanted. The drone doesn't do it very much good. There is a big potential of rollaways on this green. On to hole 7, we will be having a 7A position and a 7B. 7A is a par 3, 355 feet. And 7B is a par 4, 500 feet. The tee shot is out this tight gap. You kind of want to go directly towards this wood bridge you see in the center and have it fade to the left at the end. During the summer, when it's grown up thick, it's a much more difficult shot than this time of year. As the drone heads in, you'll see manhole covers. There's two. There's one on the right and one on the left. The one on the left is a lot of people's aiming point. They try to land there, get themselves a circle one putt. There's an OB creek to the left, behind, and to the right of the basket that do come into play. It's a pretty difficult 2 on hole 7A, but a relatively easy 3. And when you're playing the long position, basically the same tee shot you took on A will set you up for success on B. You're going to navigate over this creek here. There's a guardian tree to the left and an OB track to the right. All of this woods and ditch you see to the left is in play, but it might as well be a stroke. If you're going in there, it's very thick. It's a difficult approach shot to try and land it close. The basket is slightly elevated. One of the prettier greens on the course. Moving on to hole 8, par 3, 395 feet. This is one of the hardest holes on the course according to scoring average. Difficult tee shot here, low ceiling, lots of trees. You have to go right of this Mando tree that you see with the sign on it here. It's not really a big issue whenever all this is grown up on the left, but when it thins out during the winter time, the aggressive line goes left over the softball fields, and we try to avoid that. Your tee shot wants to go out this direction in between the trees that you see towards the skate park. It's the blue thing in the background. I believe the drone's flying the aggressive forehand roller route. There's an OB creek on the left of this hole that runs the entire length of the fairway. Any approach shot that lands at the basket or to the left side will filter off into the creek. It's an extremely fast green. Makes putting from the right side of the basket extremely difficult and nerve-wracking as well. Between the shot shape and the length of this hole, it's rather difficult to make birdie here. Par does feel like birdie. Hole 9, another par 3, 370 feet. Most of the hole is flat and finishes uphill. You have this OB walking trail to the left and a pretty wide open fairway to the right if you want to play safe. The basket is up in the trees on this little hill next to the basketball court. There's a couple different approaches. Throw a short control drive out here to the edge of this greenery. Come in left side and try to land up on the hill next to the fence. Or come into the right side and try to skip something up this hill underneath the trees. Most players opt for landing right in here where the drone is. They don't have the distance to push the basket. Leave a short approach shot and take their 3. The drone doesn't do the slope justice. This is a huge rollaway hole, approach shots and putts need to be left of these trees to try and stick. to give you a realistic shot at 2. Next up, hole 10, par 3, 280 feet. One of the easiest holes on the course based on scoring average, and a very fun shot to throw. This fence here on the left does come into play for those lefties and for forehand players. Depending on the wind, the play is usually to hyzer out towards these trees on the right. Pretty wide open hole. During tournament play, this creek in front of the basket is OB. This hole can be played a couple different ways. You can throw short of the creek on purpose. It's about a 25-foot putt. Or you can go long of the basket and have a decent chance at putting back at it. This is a 2 you definitely want to get. The hole usually plays with the headwind. Hole number 11, par 4, 575 feet. This is another very gettable par 4 on this course. This hole used to be much more difficult when the tree stump that you see there on the left, before that was cut down. It's a much tighter gap to try to navigate. I'm going to throw a forehand or a turnover shot out this gap. Big flex, wide open fairway, as long as you navigate the gap correctly. Ideal landing spots on the other side of this hill. Your approach shot's going to be affected greatly by the wind. It's usually howling back here. If you see the American flag off to the back left of your screen, you'll see that it's whipping pretty good. It's pretty downhill from this point to the basket, which does make judging the distance that you need to throw difficult when you account for the wind as well. Another wide open green that has nothing to block the wind from it. You really just want to leave yourself with a tailwind putt on this hole and take your 3. Hole number 12, par 3, 330 feet. It plays uphill the entire way and plays much longer than 330. The basket is nestled in these trees up here. There is pretty much 3 separate gaps that the locals use. Left-handers take the gap up to the left of this hill. It opens up once you get on top of the hill, but it's a much longer throw. There's a center gap to the left of these 2 large trees that you'll see in the middle of your screen. It gives you a circle's edge putt with a low ceiling. And the bigger arm right-handed players throw this big hyzer around the back side of these 2 large guardian trees and try to skip up the hill and give themselves a putt. This is a very sloped green as well. Rollaways are commonplace. A 3 is a pretty good score on this hole. although 2s are pretty common. I'm going to try to avoid getting yourself behind these 2 large guardian trees on the right side of your screen. Hole number 13, a par 4, 415 feet. Another one of the easier holes on the course. Drivable for the bigger arms among you. The basket is on the other side of these clump of trees in the center of the fairway. There is a lefty hyzer route that lands up by that small evergreen tree. You can go up the center. It kind of opens up if you pass the big tree in the center. Or you can take this right route that the drone is flying and try to land beyond this tire here for an easy approach. Those with a little more power can try to get around this corner here where the shadows of the trees are and skip up into the circle. Hole does play uphill the entire way, and once again the basket is located in the open where the wind can play havoc on you. It's really the only defense this hole has is the wind. This is a definite need to get 3. Hole 14, the first of 2 lake shots. Par 3, 310 feet. It is roughly 200 feet to carry the water straight across. There is a safe play around the right of the levee here that you see on your right if you don't have the distance to make it across. There is the big lefty hyzer route to the left side around these 3 guardian trees. And there's this turnover shot here that most right-handers play. And the hyzer back at the end. Not an extremely difficult hole, more just of an intimidating hole based on how the wind is playing that day. Relatively easy 3 to get if you don't fall for the intimidation. And a good 2 to get. Hole 15, par 3, 360 feet. Hardest hole on the course according to scoring average. It is roughly 360, 350, I would say, to carry the water. The basket sits on a levee just right above the edge of the water to the left side of your screen there. The drone's going to fly the safe route that most people play to the bailout zone over here on the right. Most players will try to hyzer a disc over in this direction and land beyond these 2 trees. Right in here for the shorter arms. Bigger arms will try to cut the corner up here. As you can see as the drone flies in, just how steep the levee is in front of the basket and on the back side of the basket as well. Makes shot going across the water the entire way really difficult to try and gauge the speed to land and park this hole close. Three is a very good score on that hole. On to hole 16, par 3, 370 feet. A lot of people's favorite tee shot on this course. Huge drop in elevation. The basket is nestled down in that tree line. No real OB to worry about. There is a fenced-in gardens to the left and a fence row to the right that runs along the right side of the fairway. It kind of ends where those people are standing off to the right. I've seen everything from putters to distance drivers on this hole with varying results. You kind of want to stay in the center here that the drone is flying, or at least end up there. Anything to the left or right that's long will pinch you off, make your approach shot very difficult. Landing right in this area is pretty much where everybody wants to try to be, or closer. There's an OB walking track long that you can barely see there. Doesn't usually come into play. Pretty well protected green from the front. If you can penetrate through the trees, you've got a decent shot at two. Hole 17, a par 3, 365 feet. It's almost a mirror copy of hole 5, just longer. This walking trail that you see in front of you and to the left and right is all OB. Much like hole 5, you need to throw the same type of shot, either a big lefty turnover or a big righty hyzer. I believe the drone battery died there. There are some trees that stick out considerably into the fairway, creating a low ceiling. If you want to try to go underneath them, or hyzer around it, like the drone is doing. As you approach here, there is a couple guardian trees. Anything left is very difficult to recover from. This locust tree here on the left is kind of where you want to land your tee shot and skip up towards the basket. That walking trail on the levee behind the basket hardly comes into play, but it is OB. Safe play is to go long of this position to the right and have a putt back at the basket. More aggressive shots are going to try to land in here and split these trees for a look at two. It's one of those holes you just don't want to do too much on and get yourself into trouble. Hole 18, par 4, 435 foot. Another very soft par 4 for our finishing hole. If you're down a couple of strokes, you can go for the eagle on this hole, try to gain ground. All this area off to the left is wide open and in play. This walking trail to the right is OB. And there is a creek that divides the fairway that is OB as well. It's roughly 350 feet from the tee to reach the creek. A lot of players will just play right up to the edge of the creek, leave themselves an easy pitch up, and take their 3. If you want to go for the 2, this is the hole to do it. Most of the bigger arms are going to throw a hyzer or a flex shot up into this area here and give them a circle's edge look. Basket does play slightly uphill at the end. It is in another wide open position where the wind is a factor. But this is a definite 3 that you should be picking up. And that will conclude our walkthrough of the Marion Disc Golf Course. Thank you for tuning in.